Boom. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. From the beginning, I knew I had to get this brother on the show. It was only a matter of time. This is episode number 11. I was just telling this brother that in numerology, 11 is considered to be one of two master numbers. So it's no coincidence that tonight I got this brother talking with me. My good brother, please introduce yourself. What is your name? What chapter are you from? And what semester did you cross?
Peace, family. My name is Dennis Febo. I'm the founding brother of the revolutionary Kyodrowe chapter, which is at the University of Buffalo. And that was in fall of 2002.
Fall of 2002. So officially, you are the oldest brother that I've had on the show. Spring of 2002. By no means are you an old man, but you are the oldest brother that I've had on the show. And I've been making it a point to, just to continually remind myself and put it out there into the ether that I need to have the word and the perspective of older brothers because, there's wisdom to be gleaned from y'all experiences. And very happy to have you on the show. One quick note. So when I was online and when I was going through it, at that point in my life, I've been coming into consciousness, regarding our people and the history of our people and the things that our people have gone through at the hands of other people and our history, our true history in comparison to the history that we're fed coming up in school. And because of that, I had a certain air about me as I walked around campus. And I would talk a certain way in my race and politics classes, and I would be, very opinionated and very rooted in revolutionary ideology. I was studying Malcolm very heavily, and when I got into LSU and was introduced, all I kept hearing was, you got to meet Dennis Febo. You got to meet Dennis Febo. We got to get you to see Dennis Febo. Dennis Febo. Dennis Febo. And I'm like, yo, all right, and who's this dude? And long story short, the encounter finally happened, and bro, I shit you not. From that day on, I said, I want to be like that guy. Facts. In my mind and my heart, I said, I want to be like that guy. And you was an example of a brother that during my process, I seen and, you made an impact, bro. You made an impact. And it has been lasting ever since, bro. Ever since we talked, babe, we had that Indiana trip. We shared that Indiana experience. That was a great time, but, we rarely speak, but, I've always held you in high esteem and always had a lot of respect, admiration for you as a brother and as a man, family man, even aside from the LSU label, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you. Thank you for being on the show. And let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Talk to the people a little bit about who you are, how you were raised, where were you born, what kind of young boy were you, and let's get into your childhood a little bit.
My childhood, I was born, I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
All right.
Excuse me. My mother was very young. She was 16 when she got pregnant with me. My dad was 17. They got married and eloped, and, they struggled. No 16 and 17-year-old have any business getting married and having children. But, their history, and this is like, you don't really get to plug the two together when you study history or you study, society and kind of plug that to how that affected you growing up, So for me, when I'm young, I couldn't look back. But when I got older and I look back is how I was able to see why I went through the things that I went through. And not just myself, any other Puerto Rican male my age, my family is Boricua, the baby boomer men, 75% ratio of being in prison or dead or on drugs. And my father was, he ended up struggling with cocaine addiction, for most of his life until he ended up taking his own life in 2008. And, my mom had 5 of us. I was the oldest of 5. We moved around a lot. We never really had much.
Stayed in New York, stayed in Brooklyn?
Now, we went literally from Brooklyn to Puerto Rico. Then we came back. Then we moved to Tennessee because my father joined the Army.
Oh, wow.
And then we moved to Kentucky. And then we moved back to Brooklyn. Then we moved to Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we moved 4 different places. And then we moved to Maryland when I was 12. And that's when I came back to the U.S. So
What accounted for so much movement? Was your mother just trying to find a base
yeah, I
throughout
mean,
all those
like
years?
my pops, because he was struggling with the addiction and trying to take care of his family, and you can't do both. You know, and he dropped the ball. And then when I was around 9, no, how old is he? 10. He left to New York to quote unquote send for us, and he left my mom and us behind, and he never sent for us.
This was while you were in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, when I was little. So we, not even that. He gassed us up, talked about he got the tickets. We were packed and got ready to go. It was very heavy stuff when I was young. A lot of stuff. We suffered a lot emotionally because of everything going on. And I was already rebellious coming up my teenage years, and living in Maryland as a Puerto Rican was very uncomfortable because everybody was either black or white. And then the black and white beef ain't as evident in Puerto Rico.
Right.
So I was kind of confused. I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And as a Puerto Rican, funny when I say it I did a TED Talk. So in the TED Talk, I give the story of that friend that, I used to stay over his house and play video games with him. And he would come over to my house. Like, he was bonding with the cat. And that went from a Friday to a Monday when Mom Dukes found out I spoke Spanish. She forbade him from talking to me. So when I went to go give him a dap, he was
This is in Maryland?
Yeah, he was like, nah, I can't shake your hand no more. So I was really hurt. And and then he said, you got to understand, my parents are racist. And I never heard that word before.
Right.
What
Foreign.
the fuck is racist? I was like, all right. So, all right, cool. Then you ain't talking to me or whatever. And then he made a joke. And he said something. It was a joke about animals that have forgotten who they were. And somebody's reminding them. And when they got to the skunk, the person telling them who they were said, well, you have black and you have white and you stink, so you must be a Puerto Rican. Right? And that was a wedge because it was like, I was already dealing with that half black, half white. I didn't know if I belong with blacks or I belong with whites.
Right.
And then somebody brought it up. I know it wasn't his. I know he was regurgitating, even when I heard it. But I got mad that he tried to act like big. So I went and I got this big ass rubber band, bro. I went sat behind him when the class started, and I was like, what? He started crying. I was like, say that shit again. Say it again. Say some stupid shit again. See what happens.
So you had a deeply ingrained consciousness of the fact that you was a Boricua from young. You knew you was a Boricua. That was clearly defined for you?
Well, it was funny because when I moved to Puerto Rico, I was in the first grade, second grade, and I was already dealing over there with tú eres de allá. You from over there.
Right.
So I went over there. I was from over here. I came over here, and I'm from over there.
Crazy
So it was
shit
like
that
this
happens,
whole,
man.
this constant culture clashing that kind of put me up on edge. And then when I got into high school, 9th grade in Maryland, it was a really good high school too. That was like ranked 8th in the country. If I would have stayed there, I would have had a whole different life.
Yeah.
But I ended up, reconnecting with my father, and I moved back with him when I started high school, back to Brooklyn.
You left your mother and your siblings?
Yeah.
How was that, man? How was that decision for you? Did you make the decision like easily?
No, not easily. Absolutely not. Because my little brother and sister, I practically raised them.
Right.
The babies. For me to leave the baby was like really big thing for me. But I knew I wasn't happy, man. I wasn't happy where I was. I didn't fit in. I didn't understand. And then I was already visiting my father coming to New York, and then I go to Maryland. It's just such a different.
Right.
I was like, nah, I gotta go back home.
You knew you was more comfortable in New York, right? That was home for you. That was home, no doubt.
So I went back home. I went to John Dewey High School. I did well in school. I had, AP classes. I graduated as a certified phlebotomist, a medical lab assistant. I competed in national competitions. I did a program.
No shit.
Cornell Medical. For pre-med, I did internships at Coney Island and Brooklyn hospitals. And when I was 16, my dad hit a big crisis in his life, and he tried to drag me into it. So I didn't cover for him, so he kicked me out. I was 16.
At 16 in New York.
And in New York. So when the night he kicked me out, and I just packed my PlayStation, 2 of my bags with my clothes and like plastic bags. I went to school. I put them in my locker. I closed the door, And I was like, I'll sleep on the train. I was like, I'll figure it out. And my boy knew, and he was like, just come stay the night. I asked my mom.
This is one of your boys from high school?
Yeah, Rafi.
Yeah.
So yeah, his mom always wanted another child. So when I came, and she really liked me, and she was like, you could stay here as long as you need. So they actually went to the store and bought a bunk bed so that I had my own bed. You know, I stayed with them for 6 months while I was doing all those programs and going to school. I was working at ShopRite, you know, so I did a lot of fending for myself. Before that, I was the oldest of all my siblings. There was 5 of us, and I fended for them.
Did you have, at that point, did you have any resentment for your father, or did you have understanding?
I did not have mad resentment then.
Damn, yeah.
Because, you know, you start encountering other people who have it, and you can see, you know, even till today, if I engage with a grown man, I can tell if that man had his father in his life. You know what I mean? And I when I was young, I used to see that when you don't have it and it affects you, because you know, you try to pretend it don't. You know, like, whatever, I don't need my father.
Yeah, I don't need him,
You see another person your age engaging with their father, it's like, damn. I was like, it's heavy. It's very evident, and you wish you had it, you know? So I was very, very, very resentful. I was rebellious, man. I had a lot going on emotionally, you know, and I didn't know. You don't know these things when you're little. Nobody defines.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
of course, how to cope, how to deal with it, you know, how to channel it. Did you at that point, were you channeling the ways that you felt, you know, destructively, even though you were excelling academically? Did you have any destructive habits or things that you got into that, you know, threw you off your square?
It's funny. I'm joking with my son got stepped to the other day. He's 12.
Yeah.
So it was like his real first, and it was by a grown man, right? So I was like, I get you, baby. You know, at least nothing happened. You know, you got to always be aware. You got to always be alert, because you never know. And I started thinking in my head, by 12, how many fist fights, how many encounters, and people getting jumped, like the amount of, you know,
chaos and
that you have
tension,
to live
conflict.
in. You know, even being in Brooklyn, I was on an everyday thing, man. Every 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning, you going to school, somebody got to be like, yo, like, you know, so, bro, I was wild. Like, when I got to that point, mind you, I was like, I weighed $115. I was like 5 feet tall, right? I was nothing. So I learned being vocal. My loud Puerto Rican ass would say something real crazy. That's how I'll be able to check people, which I was really good at, you know, using my word to get people in their mind more than it was physical.
Got you.
And not till I graduated, I went to University of Buffalo. And my freshman year, they had student clubs. And so I took Seido karate and Aikijitsu. And when I learned how to defend myself, when I went back to Brooklyn, I didn't have to get loud no more. Somebody says something, I'll be like, yo, I'm dying to test my shit out, bro. Like,
no doubt.
I don't gotta say nothing no more. I literally had, bro, I went from arguing every day, fighting every day, trying to stand up all the time. It carried on to way later in my life. Once I learned how to fight, and then when I learned meditation and yoga and I got centered, bro, I have no problems, bro. It's so crazy.
No reason, right. Because it stems in the mind, right? It all stems in the mind.
You attract it.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody else about that. You know, the things that you focus on, how balanced you can be within. It really becomes a reflection of what happens without.
Yeah, I haven't been stepped to. I could tell you maybe in 10 years. Mine is this one time. I'm contemplating whether I should get a gun permit.
Because of that encounter?
No, this was just random. You know, I work with corrections, so I was like, yo, if I go for a permit, they might give me more of a chance, because I could say that I work with corrections.
Right.
I walk into a check cashing place, and I'm online reading the law, what it's supposed to be. And as I'm reading, I feel somebody like hovering around me, right? So I look up, and this dude's like, and I'm like, you know, looking at him like, what the hell's wrong with this dude? Right? So I keep reading, and then I heard in my head, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Like, I've never had another negative encounter, but the moment I started looking into getting a gun, now somebody wanted to step to me. So I said, you know, with my crazy ass, let me not get a gun. So I left it alone.
Wait, but that was it? You just heard him hovering? Nothing became of that?
Grilling me, but it was just like, I literally know that I attracted that. I attracted it. You know, even when it happened, I chuckled like, wow. You know, so I was like, all right, leave him alone. I kept ignoring him till he went away, but
Yeah.
because I also know how to balance it like that now because I'm older. But yeah, man. Then I went to University of Buffalo. I went there for 4 years. I pledged for Lambda Sigma Upsilon.
How did you get it? How did you get introduced to the frat?
I had my little experiences with looking online. I never really heard of Greek life, and then when I did see what I saw, I didn't kind of like what I was seeing. So after a while, I actually thought it was whack. And then I met this brother, Brandon Medford, my chapter brother.
All right.
And he had told me that he was looking into a fraternity, to starting a chapter of one. And me and him were vibing on the political tip because I was opening my mind on Puerto Rican independence. And the reason that happened was because
did that consciousness of Boricua independence, did that happen when you got to UB? Or were you conscious of it prior?
Nah, when I got to UB, I didn't even. It's funny because you know, Puerto Rican politics is party. The parties are based on
parties, right?
The U.S. I don't associate with any of that, right? Because how do you declare yourself as a human being in relationship to the things that are around you? You know, not much less as a nation, right? So I don't recognize that no more. But then, you know, your family and your friends, and it's very divisive over this ridiculous concept that they have no real control over,
right? In
that legal sense. But it happened because my roommate across the hall gave me a pamphlet about the bombing of Vieques, and that somebody had been killed.
So for those that are not aware, Vieques is a island off, you know, a smaller island off of Puerto Rico, still considered part of the territory, and the United States military would use that smaller island of Vieques to test, you know, military weaponry as far as bombing is concerned, destroying the environment and the livelihoods of people that lived on the island in the process. But yeah, continue.
So at this point, 33% increase in cancer rate on that little island. And they found that the U.S. was using depleted uranium in their shelling, which is illegal against Geneva Convention standards. So I'm like, well, so this isn't even a war. And you're practicing, and you're using ammunition that you know is poisonous to the ground and the people that live on that island, and you still doing it.
Right.
And when I heard that, and it was literally like we're being attacked. That's what I felt. Me and my family, my people are being attacked. So they were organizing a van or a bus from UB from the student government to New York to march on West Side Avenue and go to the Intrepid, which is like the symbol for the Navy or whatever, to protest the Navy's presence in the island of Vieques. When I got there, excuse me, I expected, in my mind, thousands of Puerto Ricans to be there standing side by side. And all I saw were Dominicans, Palestinians, Black people. It was all a bunch of other people. And those were the little cliques of power, people that were more conscious within their own respective groups. So from then till now, my understanding on nationalism changed a lot, because our own brothers and sisters will murder us. Right? That's the other end. I have one is that through complete identification, association of this term of being Boricua, and you are Boricua, that the moment that term is said out loud, that there is a quick, like, everybody understands.
Right.
Mind you, there's been civilizations and societies up until today that have the ability to do that. When we talk about a colonialized population and colonized mentality, there's certain things and certain hurdles that you have to overcome, and especially in leadership, because leadership was infiltrated. Yeah. And a seed of doubt was planted that exists all the way up until today. Anybody could be an agent, you know? So having all of the, when I went there and I saw that, I learned that. Then, you know, I'm being loud because I'm being passionate, because I believe that this is wrong. And somebody gave me the megaphone, and I started, I'm like, you know, I'm 18 at the time.
Right.
You know, and I'm like on a megaphone. I still have the picture of like the whole crowd behind us. A lot of people were like proud that they saw young people there.
Right.
You know, because there was a lot of elders, and you know, then it went going on for a while. But when I came back and I saw what I saw, I basically just started reading. You know, and the internet had just you know, blown up.
What year are we talking about? This is like 2000, 99?
It's just 2000.
All right.
You know, the internet had already been out, but it was more like getting more prolific now, right?
Right.
Like everybody now starting to have it, because the schools would give us what we call snap computers, which had like 300 megabytes on the hard drive. That's when I got Napster.
Napster.
You know, like,
I remember.
But I had the internet now, you know, and it was just like, you know, whatever I wanted to read, I got to start. You know, it's funny too, because not even Google existed. None of the search.
Right.
It was AOL, and the search queries were very
Right.
small compared to what they are now. So with that alone, I was able to find a lot of information about Puerto Rican history, and and the deeper that I got, I was like, wow, like it just kept blowing my mind. And but the other problem about waking up and understanding those things is that the people immediately around you don't know what you know.
You feel at first, I think for me, right? At first, it's a battle of, it's an ego. It becomes an ego thing when you get, especially at a young age, because I became conscious at 19, I consider, right? More or less. I always had a little consciousness because I come from conscious parents, but, you know, like on my own. So at first, it's like an ego-based thing where you almost feel, I don't know, I almost felt like, yeah, I know some shit that these people don't necessarily know. So I feel a responsibility to put them on. I got to put them on. And I always, you know, and it always seemed like the way I would try to put people on would be like aggressively, almost arrogantly and shit. And it would end up pushing people away. But you grow into that and you realize, you know, some people ain't meant to know certain things at certain times. But that's just what that made me think of. Well, being the one that knows a couple other things that people in your circle don't necessarily do.
And I mean, I think that you develop more because of reaction, right? So mind you, when we talk about being woke or conscious, that we always have to remember that we were already born that way, right? Again, Jesus, I'm not religious, but I really like to be religious figures. Just Jesus said that in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be as a child.
Right.
It's funny, I have this new show on Netflix, Messiah. Is pretty interesting. But he makes a call out that who would stand for God, and all the kids walked up. That was a dope scene. Same thing with us. We're born that way. And the way you're questioning and the way that you're viewing, you already did, but you were taught, nah, shut up. This is why, right? And mind you, how many fallacies have we taught generation after generation after generation, all the way up until now? The amount of lies that we have been told and that we're walking around believing in our mind, not knowing that it's the root of most of the bullshit that's going on in our lives, right? Because we are impressionable, because we're programmatic, you know, because we're habitual, because, you know, all of us have that innate know that we are here to do something, but everything around you is quote unquote preventing you from getting there. You know, this illusion, bro. I think the older that I've gotten, the more I've got to understand how to pierce through it. But you have to read, you have to study, you have to like, you know, you have to open your mind in so many different ways that a lot of people won't put that work in. And I think that's why it's
discipline,
hard.
Sacrifice. You know?
Then you put the work in and now everybody looking at you. You know, so it's like now you're in reaction to everybody want me to do it now. So now you start doing it. Then most people don't do what they say they're going to do. And now you're the one in charge. And out of 10 people, 9 said they didn't do it. So, and I thought we was here for a revolution. I thought we was here for organization. I thought we was here for the people. And y'all motherfuckers don't show up. You don't show up on time. You don't honor your word. There's no validity. There's no, and you know, they stand up or try to be hard or be men. But at the end of the day, that's one of the most measurable things, that you say you're going to do something and you do it. And it's simple. A lot of the times we waste more energy coming up with excuses and justifications as to why we don't do it takes more energy and time than to actually just do it.
Do
You know
the
what I mean?
action, right?
So
I got
start
you.
seeing it from that position, I start going crazy. Like, yo, bro, like you want to fight not everybody now.
So what was it about that moment, right? What was it about that moment, like after the Intrepid, when you got back and started studying, when you realized, you know, that the people in your circle either didn't necessarily know what you knew or didn't care to know? So what was it about that kind of triggered this shift in perspective for you?
I think it was more through the doing. Because once I pledged, I learned about Buffalo. It was the fourth most segregated city in the country at the time. I don't know what. It's probably still high up there. It has a Puerto Rican west side, black east side, and white suburb Amherst area. And the disparities are ridiculous. The high school and the Puerto Rican section had books tied to desks, and the desk, books chained to desks chained to the floor. When you
were there in Buffalo.
So visiting the school.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Yeah. You went over there.
You see the book chained to the desk and the desk chained to the floor. And all the kids are sitting with all these chains around them.
Subconscious programming, man.
It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And then to have conversation, most of them had babies. I asked them, when do they teach sex ed? They said in the 12th grade. I'm like, obviously way too late into the game.
Right.
So and then now I'm young, I'm seeing it, and it's blowing my mind that this isn't like common sense that we should be doing certain things. And that's when I started to realize that there's an element that wants to do this. Right? So now this is evil.
Right.
Now this is evil. Negative intention with negative action is evil.
Right.
Negative intentions and negative action. And I'm seeing it around me. And who's standing up? When we get all the leadership of color and you put them together, they want to fight each other rather than fight what's actually going on.
Right.
Mind you, I've had recently white people. White, it's funny, one of the brothers, he jokes that he's so white, he's pink. But he in the projects. In one of the most dangerous projects in Jersey City, he comes in there to work. He comes in there, he gets dirty. When we go to cookouts, he's cooking. When we're cleaning up in the thing, he's there cleaning. And he's an administrator for one of the county agencies. But he legit cares.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm not going to say, oh, because you black or because you Boricua or because you this. Nah, I don't care about the color of your skin. I care that you came here to work. I care about your humanity. And to see people completely live into their humanity, there has to be an understanding that,
for me, the humanity aspect of it was one of, I think it was probably the most difficult, not difficult, but I had to resist ego a lot to understand that the humanity of people transcends race and then the color and then where they come from. Because, almost I had programmed myself during my years of early consciousness to know that, all white across the board is the enemy. All white across the board. And I had programmed myself to, come under that impression. But it's not until I start, I graduate school and I start getting into working with these young people and then working with, their teachers and the people around them who happen to be white, but like you say, cared, so that lesson took me a while. I'm on that train now, though. I understand that, humanity transcends all of that.
So, yeah, man, I finished, I graduated. I went to work as a social worker for a year, and I did not, you can't live like that. Bachelor's level social work, like you're getting 30 a year. That's it. Like you're not moving up. I had already had my daughter, and
you had it after you graduated?
After I graduated. And then one of our brothers, Stephen Munoz, founding brother of Binghamton, of the Kill chapter, wanted to go to Cuba, and one of the programs at my school at Buffalo was a Cuba-based program at the University of Havana. So I directed him to him, and his name is, we call him Profe. He told him that he would guarantee his acceptance if he got me in. So he called me, like, begging me, like, yo, come on, let's go. I'm like, bro, I just had a daughter. Like, I'm not leaving. What do you know? I'm leaving. You could do this, man. And I started saying, this was a master's program. And him saying that, like, I know he's going to get me in, and I had an opportunity to go. I didn't even consider to do that. And I put thought into it, and I asked for a lot of advice, and it was true. Like, it was a short stint. I went to Cuba for 4 months, University of Havana. It was, I think, one of the most impressive things in my life, like made the most impression on me, was to live there those 4 months. Not only that,
this is immediately post-college.
Yes, I did. After I graduated, I worked for a year, and then I went to my master's, and then I was in Cuba. Now getting back into the books and writing, it was a lot of writing. And I traveled the entire island from one end to the other end and came back. I met all kinds of people. I partied. I learned their culture. I learned their religion. I even ran out of money a month before I was supposed to leave and was literally living like a Cuban out there. When I came back, I was a twig, bro. Everybody was afraid for me. But I realized how much we don't need. Even food-wise, bro, because I was eating once a day, but I was still good. I was walking all the way and doing all the stuff I had to do. It was like, wow, like the minimization of it's really like takes like this weight off of you. When you come to the U.S. and you see everybody with it on,
I know,
and it's an illusion because we think we need these things, and we really thought we were just fine before they made them up. We were just fine for thousands of years, and all of a sudden people feel like we need these things. So, I did that. I went to Buffalo, and then my third semester I studied in Brazil. So eu aprendi a falar português lá no Brasil, uma gente bela. I was in the University of Bahia. That was also. I had seen this movie. I remember a lot of people seen The City of God, but a lot of people didn't see the special features documentary. Mind you, this is DVD when DVDs was popping.
Yeah, it's a thing of the past now.
It's called News from a Personal Story. I was literally till today one of the hands down best documentaries I've seen. Break society down, Brazilian society, and the economic disparity is intertwined. In the U.S., it's separate, right? You go to one neighborhood, it's poor. You go to another neighborhood, it's rich. In Brazil, you have a tall, rich condo with rich people inside, and then all the favelas surrounding.
All around it?
Bottom feeding off of the entire structure. Even all the apartments had bedrooms behind the laundry room for the maids. The architecture had it. So that to me was like, I stayed at a friend's house that I made over there. They had 2 bathrooms. One was outdoor, one was indoor. The outdoor was cold water. The indoor was warm water. I was ready to take a shower. I said, I had seen somebody get out the shower in the bathroom. So I said, all right. So he goes, oh, no, guests have to go outside. So I said, I'm not showering in the slave shower. I said it mad loud. Why would you say that? Because those are slave showers. That's why the water's still cold. And then when the guy got out, I went in the warm bathroom, closed the door and locked it, and I took a shower. Fuck out of here, bro. Anyway,
How long did you spend out there in Brazil?
4 months.
4 months.
4 months, yeah. And then I came back. I wrote my thesis, which was a documentary that I made called Sazón, Batería y Soberanía, Puerto Rico en la Danza por Autodeterminación.
Translate that.
Sazón es from that, metele sazón, batería y reggaetón, que lo demás lo pone Calderón. So, sazón, batería, and soberanía is sovereignty. So my vision for it, it was my first time working with film, but my vision was to try to inculcate cultural elements to make it more entertaining so that people would learn the information. Because if I just stood there and made a documentary narrating, it gets boring.
Right.
So I did. It's a half-hour documentary. It took me a year because my father ended up passing away, so I had to, put everything on hold. Came back, finished it, got my master's, and then I started working in the education field, then the private side of education.
Before you go into that, can people find that documentary right now anywhere?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. If you Google my name, Dennis Febo, you'll see it.
Okay.
my company, Wasawara Media. You'll see the documentary on there.
Okay. All right, bet. So you start working in education. You said the private side of education as what? As an educator, as an administrator, or what?
Back then, Title I all left behind. That Bush signed in '01 opened up different titles of funding. One of them is called Title I, which is given to what was called Abbott districts, which where most of the residents were under the poverty level. So it was pretty much every single urban area was an Abbott district, and therefore they qualified for, millions that were given from the federal government down the line to individual school districts, and then the districts were responsible for putting in a system where private third-party entities would come in and supplement education where they were failing. So it's called supplemental education services. So it's basically tutoring.
Okay.
It was a way of trying to Band-Aid, adding extra time to the day and Band-Aid that the schools were doing bad. And I worked out of a lot of school systems, but heavily out of Patterson in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I learned so much doing that. Not only that, the private side, corporate greed, titles, structures, the corporate espionage. Man, it was so grimy, such a grimy industry. I walked when I walked out
Did you stay in it knowing that there were lessons to be learned through the grimy, nature of the situation?
Well, with the lesson that I learned after everything that I went through, it was like, okay, so I met these people. They're not in it with their hearts.
Right.
The things that they're doing and using regards to paperwork, and I looked at everything. I was like, why couldn't I do this? That's what I kept saying. It was 3 of us that worked Patterson. We were each getting $42,000 a year. And when we finished, out of the 450 students between all of us, the company made $1.8 million. Out of the $1.8 million, 50%, 900,000 went to the CEO. I ran and managed 14 schools by myself and made 40,000, and you didn't do nothing.
Right.
You backed it. You didn't put none of the legwork. I thought I was like, that's not a pyramid scheme. And when I started looking at every other company, realized it was the same thing, a bunch of pyramid schemes, right? Mind you, when the pyramid schemes at them times also getting big, right? So everybody pyramid scheming each other. And I started to look into how to create economic fairness when you organize business structure. And then I decided I would start a business. Kind of using the coding to try to get fire back. So when I named it, it was almost like when I wanted to name my children, I wanted to give them indigenous names.
No doubt.
My parents gave me a English name because they told me they didn't want me to suffer going out, in the world.
Yeah.
So they named me Dennis, from Dennis the Menace, because that was my dad's nickname, Dennis the Menace.
Got you.
And what's it called? So yeah, I started it called Wasawara. Wasawara Insights. Wasawara means warrior in Taino, Arawak. And I decided to take my life experience and kind of structure and narrow it down and link it with, social, cultural, economic models that could help anyone in any situation have a pathway out of and towards something. So I realized we had to answer. At the same time, I had met a couple of people in my life that made an impact. One of these brothers put me on to the yoga. It really had to do with a book he showed me, the Knights Templar versus the Assassins. And it had to do with the Crusades back then, and when the Christians and the Muslims would go to war, they had these secret armies. And they'd attack each other, and it was like for mad long they fought each other, right? And that's how Knights Templar is known, where the red cross gets the cross from their symbol, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And my boys put in the book, and in it said what the Christians would do prior to going to battle, and it was it said they practiced Kundalini yoga. And I literally put the book down and just sat back like, what? right? So I'm reading and I start studying that. I'm like, wait, so how the fuck did they? Well, because they were the Crusaders, right? And they were going and traveling and doing all those things, is that they ended up in
They knew about it, right?
They learned other cultural practice and fuse it into this. So my boy started doing the training for Kundalini yoga. And he came home with a manual.
Now, at this point, prior to this point, you have no experience with yoga or like getting in touch with spirituality on this level.
Well, I mean, I grew up very Christian. You know,
Right.
my parents were Pentecostal. My grandparents, like, skirt wearing, like, you know.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, hard body. Right. Mm-hmm.
So I did have, because I grew up that way, I did when I would pray and when I would practice the religion, I did so intentfully. So for myself as a child,
Okay.
you know, I was always like that. I prayed on my own. Nobody used to tell me, no, I used to get on my knees and pray on my own. Right. I always had that there. Now I know it was misguided.
No doubt. No doubt.
Not to get into any debate about it, but guided in the way, because these are the things now that I look back when I say, when you learn, right? And I went from being a God, like Jesus is God and I love Jesus, and God and Jesus is my savior and all that, to now not knowing that he did not exist the way that people try to say that he exists.
Sure.
And because most of our community is directed towards that vision, and then you know that's what it was used for
in the first place. No, man. I know.
Still, and
I know.
So me feel like I'm going crazy because it's
and you know, I feel the same because. No, go ahead.
No, I'm saying I'm the devil, right? And I got branded, right, for my fraternity.
Right.
I know somebody in my family has said that I had joined like some Satan worshiping thing. I had the devil's horns.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
And you were saying something?
Know that on IG, you know, with everything with the earthquakes and PR, a lot of praying going on. And there was a picture of a brother. You know, I'm assuming he was a Boricua from over there, and he was holding up a white candle under the picture of who they claim to be Jesus. Brother looks nothing like him, you know. And I don't want to be arrogant because I understand the intent, and I know that, you know, a lot of our people have pure spirituality, man, and it's touching, even if it is directed toward this image, you know, of their original oppressor. But, you know, sometimes I struggle with how to just, you know, do I say anything at all? Do I live and let live? You know what I mean? Like, what, you know, in that case, what do I do? Do I just study and just understand?
You pick your battles. That's what I learned, man. Just pick your battles, because sometimes somebody will put that where it doesn't belong. You know, and as an example, fast forward now, I work in the prison system. And if you look at addiction services, who holds the crown for addiction services? You got NA and AA, Narcotics and Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're both Christian-based services. And the first step says that you have to acknowledge that the problem is bigger than you, so you have to put it in God's hands, right? Which so it's literally, when I go into jail, it's on the wall, and I say, point number one is literally the most false shit anybody could ever teach you.
Oh, so that's the first thing you say when you go in there?
Absolutely, because you're externalizing the problem. So now yes, there's an imaginary force, but you're working with someone who has developed a crutch. It's almost like when a baby needs their security blanket. It is that. It's a security blanket. If you want to put a baby to sleep and they don't have their security blanket, they're not going to sleep. They're going to cry and they're going to whine until and any parent is going to go find them a security blanket. That's the same thing with an addict, right? But here they try to tell you, no, the problem's too big, so you got to go above it. Give it to God, and God will take care of it for you. Not at all acknowledging the physiological, biological, and psychological processes that are developed to addiction. God ain't gonna take it away from you. You know what I mean? And then say that, I remind them all the time, we ask God for things, and I feel like if I'm listening to God, listen to people, he's telling them, I already gave it to you. What you asking for? You had it in you from the beginning. But you're waiting on some external force to come along and give it to you. We go to we seek, and we're thirsty, looking on the outside, not knowing that we already had it from within.
But that's but that's a byproduct of the savior complex, right? That's ingrained in us as you know, through colonialism. You know, I'm talking mainly for, you know, Boricuas, our people, but that's that savior complex. You're always searching for it outside of you.
No, and now imagine, like, I went from that and growing and all the experience. I literally organized everywhere. I helped start LSU in Texas. I lived in Florida. I did New York, all over Jersey. I literally traveled, and then I started speaking. My public speaking kicked up, especially after I got my master's. I started getting gigs here and there, and I started realizing my power of my voice. And I started studying it as like, how would this look? Because I know that there are people out there that live like this. And, learning the ropes. I started in 2011 with Guasabara and just getting contracts here and there, like going to different places and speaking. And it has developed now into a company that has, I think we have 14 different lines of open service right now. And I have a staff of 15 people. And I started just with the idea, going through all messed up experiences, learning that, wow, like this ain't that hard. It ain't that hard, especially for us that grew up with the computer age.
Right.
Like, you know how to use a computer, bro. There's nothing you can't do. You could do anything.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
a fact.
So once I learned how to do film, I learned how to do music. I learned how to work with Photoshop. I learned how to write
the editing, everything.
Man, my own curriculum, all the forms that anybody could ever have, I looked into how do I get a press pass, right? And you get into that, and then it's like you make it up. I was like, what? That was the final answer after 2 hours of studying on the internet. Make it up. So I went and I made my press pass, and I printed and I laminated, and I wear it around my neck, and I put my camera on, and I walk into places.
Right.
And people get shook. And because I'm walking into the places that they don't want eyes on them. Right. And I started realizing the power of the camera. And I saw this dope meme. World War I had a rifle. World War II had a tank. And World War III had a person holding a camera. Like a shoulder cannon. The ability of using media and having our own voices. And now that it's like super grown, like it's almost infinite right now because of YouTube and people creating channels, which is a beautiful thing to be able to share your voice. But it's more than just doing it. From what I've learned and realized is like you can have an innate talent. You can get up there and do it, and a lot of people do this. They'll get up there and they'll do it, but they don't see themselves growing, right? Or they don't see themselves moving from a certain point. You start to figure, why. And it's because it is an ego thing. When we have a talent, no creemos la gran mierda. Like you think because you're talented at this, you can't master it even more and more.
Right. Right.
And you can never have it perfect. Never.
No need to hone the craft. Yeah.
And that's when you grow, because I realized anytime I ever tried to go get money, that's a money opportunity. I should go do that because it's going to bring me. And every time I chased it, I never got it.
Ooh.
Anytime I've been like, hey, Febo, you might come in and speak at this school because, the staff is da-da-da-da-da. And, that day I'll go and I start to, people vent a lot. They talk to me because in these places because they're not allowed to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to speak out against your employer. But they'll tell me, and I'll hear all the inside scoop, right? And then I'll feel how the staff feels, and I'll do something to address it with my energy. And then when I do it, the response from the audience, and I've noticed that from the beginning of my speaking career up until now is the intensity of the response of the audience. Because you start to learn, it's funny, again, I grew up in the religion, so I say there was a part in this Jesus story where Mary comes to visit him, goes to ask him something or speaks to him while he was addressing an audience. And then they went out and then they came back in and interrupted him saying, your mother's outside. And he said, don't interrupt me while I'm speaking. He said, yeah, but your mother's outside. And he goes, I'll get to her when I'm done. So he says he heard in their hearts that they said. That's what the verse said. And that always stood with me. I was like, wait, how do you hear in their hearts? Like when I was a little kid, I heard that.
Yeah.
Now I can address an audience and maybe I'll say something. Sometimes I'll do it. I might say something provocative just to get a reaction or do something with the audience. And then when I feel the tension, I might be addressing this side of the audience, but all of a sudden I feel tension on the right.
Yeah.
So then I'll position my body to face where the tension is. And then with patience, with love, with compassion, I hold on. And sometimes I'm there in the jail, you could imagine with a lot of the things a lot of the levels and barriers that you got. I feel like I'm cutting through, like a force cutting through. I finished sweating, like I'm working, like physical work, labor to get through cutting to the point where people go, oh shit, I didn't think of it like that. Exactly. Because if anything is getting you that riled up, you know that anything, it ain't working, right? Because our point and goal as a conscious is to be as serene as we could be, because then in the state of serenity is where you're able to be most creative, most productive, most loving.
That peaceful state. Yeah.
Right. That's what we need to be at. So
talk about, let's I want to hit a couple of things, but I want you to talk about, I remember when we were out in Indiana a couple of years back, we sat down and you told me the story of your Kundalini yoga experience. So I want you to go back to what you was talking about Kundalini, about yoga, when you first, stepped into the consciousness of yoga and what that was about. And then talk a little bit about being like a practitioner of it and that turning point for you. Because I know we have brothers that, deal with health and fitness and health and wellness, and there's brothers that practice yoga and things like that, So, tie that up.
So I had, when my boy, he had ended up buying this book that came with a CD. It was called Yoga Nidra, right? And I grabbed it because it was thin. I just wanted, because, when you're researching, you grab the smallest thing first, right? So I grabbed I started reading page 1, and page 2, I said, oh, this is mad interesting. Nidra means sleep. It means yogic sleep. And it starts to explain the brain waves and sleep cycles, right? We have around 4 or 5 sleep cycles a night, and they last around 90 minutes. That's why when you go to sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night a few times of the night to fix your pillow, fix your blanket, and then you go back to sleep again. That wake up is when the cycle ended, and then when you go back to sleep, the cycle begins again. Okay. And it's like a curve, right? So if this is the curve, then, or if the curve is going to go this way, right? Then this down on the bottom, 15% of the 90 minutes, 15 minutes of the 90 minutes is the only time where you're actually sleeping. You go into the deep, lowest brain frequency, and this is where the body regenerates, and then the mind kicks in into the alpha wave. You start dreaming, REM, right? The mind is a bit active. Okay. And then you come out and you do it again. Okay. So what Yoga Nidra does is show you how to manipulate your own brain waves. Now, this was prior to Apple coming out, or on the iPhone, there's a device where you put them on like headphones. It has a clip by the eyebrow, and it reads your brain wave, right? And then it's plugged into the phone. The app has a little window playing a video, and it'll say increase your brain waves, so as to expand the size of the video so that it plays a full screen. And when you do so, you win that part of the game. So it'll be big, and it'll say calm your brain waves so that the video gets small. So as you keep playing that game, you start to learn how to move your own brain waves up and down. So now if I know how to move my brain waves, I can literally, without losing consciousness, without having to close my eyes and knock out and go to sleep, down, right? Bring my brain wave down where that 15 minutes is, and now make that an hour and a half. Right. If I lay there an hour and a half, all the 15 minutes, I just slept for the 8 hours sleep that I was sleeping. I get sleeping an hour and a half. So I read it, and then it was a guided meditation. I was a little nervous with all that, like, like feeling like you won't get hypnotized or like. Sure. And so I was like, I got brave. I put the Discman at the time. I put it on. I laid in bed and I listened to it, and I did the exercise. And it was what is it playing? Is it a voice talking to you? Yeah. Or is it? Yeah, and they're guiding you how to focus on all the points in your body. If you start from your head to your forehead to your nose to your chin to your neck to your shoulders, and you go to the bottom, you go to the top, then you do body breathing, where it's if I imagine breathing in through my toes, and then I exhale out through my toes, and then if I bring it up to my knees. That's funny. You saying it now, and as I'm breathing, that's what I'm visualizing. That's what all the way up to the top. Then you go to the toes, then you go to the heart. And then at the end, when he says heart, he goes, now go deep, deep, deep. And when he said that, I felt like I submerged into the ocean. I felt like energy running up and down my body. Now, at the time, I was really confused. Again, I grew up religious. I was afraid that I was playing with fire. But it felt so good, and I started laughing and crying. Like at the same time, I just started crying. Like I felt a release. And later on, I figured out I had just released a blockage, you know, because of being in touch with myself. And I went deep within myself, a block release. So when I had that one experience, I knew there was more to this because I knew that was only introductory. And then I was reading the manual my boy got me, that he was using for the teacher's training. And the manual blew my mind. It was literally like it was literally the cheap magazines that you get for your video games.
Yeah.
I mean, where I give you all the scoop,
yep.
but to like human body, to relationships, so like the way it broke it down, it was just like, wow, like nothing impressed me more about and learning about myself, because it also made it very simple, like your body, like literally, like you don't gotta go nowhere.
Nothing.
How you breathe, how you stand, how you think, how you feel, like the more you control that and have dominion over that, the more that's where you're gonna have productivity and happiness in your own.
That's what I'm learning now. I'm in that phase right now, man, and it's incredible.
So, then I had various other super duper, like I would say, supernatural experiences practicing. But you know, if you're not guided, you start to get caught up in the. I couldn't even imagine back in the day was even worse, where there was no explanation, scientifically speaking, to how things would happen.
Right.
You know, and now there's so much in Western that has proven what the East has been saying all along. I think this crux in, you know, and everybody's seen it, definitely more evident. 15, 20 years ago, you didn't hear yoga. There were no yoga studios.
Right.
I remember when none of that existed. We remember when Taco Bell came out with the first yoga commercial. Then yoga pants became a thing. Then yoga studios started opening up. And the more I encountered, the more I realized they were very watered down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like going to a Blink or like these specific, like watered down, like, you know, fast versions of things that didn't really go deep into the philosophy and the science of the body. Right. So when I learned that, and I started getting heavy in it, what I started to realize was that I still had my anger. I had from before. I had a lot of deep-seated anger that I never really dealt with. And it would come out as fear. When I would meditate, I would just get afraid for no reason. You know, like, afraid like when you little and the boogeyman go come get you. That afraid in my room, grown-ass man by myself in my room, afraid.
Right.
And when I started to feel those things, that I knew it wasn't out. I kept saying, it's not outside. It's not a ghost trying to scare me. It's in me. Where is it in me that I'm afraid? And as I started challenging and learning about emotional intelligence, that when I would get angry, I would notice the jaw. As soon as my jaw would clench, my brow would frunch, the shoulders go. And like I started doing that. Like now it's more to get in my body, bring it down, relax. Because if I keep the body going that way, then my mind is gonna exacerbate. So I'm gonna And the more I've done that, my gait, my walk, the comfort in my own skin, the comfort of my feet rubbing against the floor, the comfort of the air as I breathe in and as I exhale, right? The comfort in the sound of my voice when I speak, and the comfort as when I'm listening, right? And the more relaxed and comfortable I get into those things, the more it's easier it is for me to make decisions, to see and hear things that most people ain't seeing and hearing.
Got you.
Because we're too busy looking at what we want instead of looking at, you know, and how to be of service. And that's, again, I learned through business and money making, is that the more I'm of service, the more I get blessed. Bro, I got to the point where I'm like, I opened the mailbox, I'm like, there's a check. Like, I went from home, bro, nothing, nada, broke, never. I would never in my life imagine being where I'm at right now. Blessed, you know, but knowing that it was because I know to invest. And I learned this, we do tithing in religion. You pay your tithes, right? And our fraternity and a lot of the Greek world, I got very upset with some of the organizations because it's tithing. Okay, I'm going to give $100. That's nice. That's a nice amount of money to the AIDS walk or whatever the institution it is that AIDS does or whatever. You can copy paste whatever you want and insert. Instead of taking the money, that $100, and finding someone in our community who's directly affected by that specific issue. So with that 100, I will go to someone's home who had HIV, and was struggling, and I buy their family some groceries.
Yeah.
See, now that's the work.
Right.
That's tithing. The tithing wasn't the money that you're putting into the plate. The tithing is the energy. You're giving 10% of your energy into the world. You're donating all the time. You're in a state of giving, because that's the only way you can receive, is if you're giving. It has to be an open flow back and forth.
So explain how that works. How does that work on the spiritual level? How does that work, like in the metaphysical sense? In reality, how does that work? The only way to receive is to give.
And it's a really tough one to work through, because it's almost like when you see people give a homeless person something and record themselves doing it. You know what I'm saying? So you're not giving,
you're taking, right, because you're giving with an expectation, or you're giving with intent, instead of just the act of giving. Yeah.
Right. Now, if you were really giving, you didn't need that camera, and you didn't need nobody to see. You didn't need to be thanked.
Right.
How many times I did something, they didn't even say thank you. Okay. Who said they were supposed to? Right. Weren't you giving?
Weren't you giving? Yeah.
And thank you is an expectation that you're supposed to receive something, and that reception is egotistical. It's a superiority complex for a lot of people, and that does not need to be fed. So sometimes if you're giving as a gift, because if you had to give, and if you have to give, I ain't got to thank you. You know what I mean? Because you're forced to be put in that position. So I'm not going to be forced to act like you giving me something with a positive intention. Right. So it gives the dynamics of giving and taking now start to change. I remember like when I was reading about it, it talked about like when we go to dinner, restaurant, you and me go to a restaurant, we eat, and the bill come out like, nah, I got it, nah, I got it, nah, I got it, nah, I got it. Right? And people get stuck in that whole conversation because both persons' ego does not allow them to receive. Right? Because sometimes receiving makes us look vulnerable. Receiving makes us feel, could make us look or appear to be lesser than someone else.
Right.
Forgetting that anybody ain't getting nowhere where they was getting unless they receive. Right? And so it's just like coding, because I'll give an example. I believe 90% of people, when they listen and hear that someone else did something successful, get jealous at first. And in our culture, we praise it as hate, and we count our haters. We make songs directed about this concept.
Yeah.
Right. And I always use this in my speech. I learned through my experience that you can only attain success in life if you learn how to wish success upon others. So when I got that for myself, learn how to wish success upon others, then I started really watching myself. And then I saw somebody get an award, and my first thought was like, fuck out of here. Like, what the fuck that nigga did? Like, like, first thing that popped in my mind. And I was like, well, there it went. There, and I caught myself. There it went.
Right. You were aware.
Because I punked myself, right? So when I heard myself do that, I made myself get up, walk up to them, and shake their hand and congratulate them. Both my hands, and put all my positive energy and intention into my hand when I shook his hand, and give it to them. Now I'm giving you, here, go be blessed. Even if you ain't living into the idea of what you think I had, we should all be. It doesn't hurt to recognize people for what they do.
Sure.
And now when I started doing what I was doing, you kind of are expecting that people are going to recognize you, and you start realizing, the people next to me, family, friends, like, ain't recognizing me. Then strangers start recognizing you. So you start to realize, for me, I got to this point where I was like, all right, I have to surround myself with as many genuine relationships as possible. Anything that's ingenuine in my life, I need to cut out. Is that hard? It is very hard, because we form a lot of habits around these relationships. And if those habits aren't fulfilled, we feel like things are falling apart.
Right.
And that's why I believe in the religion. When you convert yourself, when you say you are born again, they say, the pastor will always say, now the devil's going to come even harder at you now. And it's not just that, because now you was chilling with your boys talking about how you was going to jump some nigga tomorrow, and then you gave your life to Jesus, and then you're like, nah, bro, I can't do that. I can't be doing that. That's not Jesus-like. And your boys think you a punk now because you ain't doing what you were supposed to do, and you live in this battle between good and evil, man. We all did it. We all did it. But how do we break out of these dynamics? And that was the next step for me. Mentally, how do you break out? Not only that, how do you break out and you still have to engage with the system. You still got to work. You still got to pay shit. You got to pay taxes. You need insurance. Like you cannot escape it. You're in it, right? So how do you do something while being submerged in this concept that we might even feel is antagonistic towards our being?
Right.
And here I started saying, well, anything can be mastered, right? And if I go to any field, if I go into law is this. There's a school for it. There's an expertise in it, but at the end of the day, law, they call it legalese, right?
Another language,
I go to law enforcement, there's a way of doing that. Any field you go in, you can master, right? I started to think, how many fields could I master that I need for myself? The more fields that I master, the more I started growing in business, because now I can do accounting and accounting software. And now I know how to use formatting to do documents. I could make my own content on YouTube. And the more I started mastering, the more I was able to pump out. But how do you live? And I started to learn that when you learn the code, is that when you're able to defend yourself in it, right? So now it's not, oh, I'm in this system. Now it's a contractual agreement. And you're going to make agreements. We all do it, right? You want a car? All right, you need to go finance this car? All right, you need to go talk to that bank and that lender and the percentage and you need to know how that works. Our people don't. I didn't learn how to do that coming out of high school. I didn't learn how to buy a car. I go to high schools now that have rich people in them. And they get classes on how to buy houses, how to rent apartments, and how to buy cars. So when they come out, they know what they're doing. Common sense.
Right.
Okay? But for us, we didn't have that. We had to learn the hard way. But then you start, so learn credit. Bro, it took me up until recently to get this right. You know? Because it's so antagonistic towards, F that, I ain't never gonna pay that, You start walking into places and now they won't even rent you an apartment if your credit ain't right.
If your credit is low, right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how you supposed to live if you don't learn the code? Now, you're gonna hate learning the code. Right? But that's like anything else we did. We went to school and we hated that class. Fuck it, we did what we had to do to learn and get that A. But it's useful because now it's part of your coding, of your programming. Whereas when it appears on a document or appears as something in front of you, like, yep, I know that. Oh, okay, I bet.
I got you, right.
You know what I'm saying? It helps you flow through what you need to do, but we can't get stuck on, well, I just mastered this, right? And that's why we have trouble. You go to a social worker who mastered in sand play. What is that going to do for you? I mean, it works for kids. Some people like doing it, and it helps them a lot depending on the condition that they have, but it doesn't apply to everyone. And all of the systems work in the same way. And we think that the systems are there for us, but we're not actually in the contract. Two people are in the contract, two entities, and we're not fulfilling our end. Our end is there. We're not fulfilling it. And when they try to play us on it, how many times in history did we knock the ball down?
Right.
How many people do we claim and we praise every fucking Black History Month and Hispanic Heritage Month, but don't act like we ain't supposed to be doing that right now?
Right.
That they fought and bled and cried and died. And okay, that was it. That was then in the 60s. That's it. We're in the 20s now. We're in the 20s.
Future.
Like, that's already like mad long ago. Like what we doing now? The same issue that was going on then is the same issues going on now. What are we doing about it? Now I started to realize, as I got bigger and doing a lot of different things in government, I started to realize all the different councils and started participating in all these things, and I started to realize a few things. A lot of people don't know. And a lot of people are afraid to say that they don't know. And that's why we have a lot of trouble organizing ourselves. Right. Let the ego go. I think I actually praise people who say they don't know. I encourage it. Say, because I don't know sometimes too. And I hate being asked when I'm thinking, I'm saying out loud, yeah, and I don't know. You feel like a dick a little bit inside. I know you do. So it's like, know that you don't know and humble yourself so that you can learn. But then
that then becomes a question of ego, right? So, how can you explain or how can you begin to break down ego to an individual that has no concept of even ego? So they're in their ego body. They're saying yeah, but they really don't know. They're in their ego body. So that how do you begin to even approach the breakdown of the ego?
Right. So that's what the education I give is called culture and social consciousness. That's the curriculum I wrote, and that's the stuff we talk about. You have to be able to pinpoint these things. So I give an example. So everybody here, I have a room full of 60 inmates, right? What's up, everybody? I said, do me a favor, everybody in here. If you have a mind, raise your hand. Everybody, if you have a mind, raise your hand. So
mind?
Yeah, a mind.
Yeah.
So they all have their hands up. And I go, okay, now show them to me. Right, so the whole room stays quiet. I'm asking y'all a question. Everybody here has a mind, correct? You have one? Yes, we do. Show it to me. Now, it's funny because now then I'll say this. A multi-billion-dollar industry called mental health that has multi-billion-dollar industries of pharmaceutical companies creating chemicals and balances to get to what we think is optimal mental health. Right. But the mind is invisible. There's not a picture of the mind. You can't tell me where the mind is, where it goes. The mind, things cross it. The mind, you can lose it as if it was an object. It could be diagnosed and boxed into something. You could say that something's wrong with it, but not one person in this entire existence can show it to you. So what are we talking about? And because we don't explore, and this is what's called the field of mental somatics or mind body, right? And mental somatics, the mind has a dynamic. Everybody knows the dynamic. The mind be whooping our ass.
Right.
You know, and with the guys, it's easy when I just bring it up with basketball. You know, say you haven't played ball in a while, you get the court, you go to the free throw line, and the first thing you say in your head is, I probably suck right now, right? Because you haven't played in a while. So you throw the ball, air ball. But you're not recognizing that the mechanic of your body had to do with the alignment of the mind. Right? So if I walk in believing something, then right? If I think that I'm whack, my body's gonna twist a little bit.
Yeah.
Your movement could throw the entire shot off, but because it stems from the mind. Now, when you're on fire, you confident, you loose.
No doubt. You flow, right?
And you can throw anywhere from the court and make it because your confidence level's on 100, right? So, very simple. This is what we call a state of flow, and science is when the brain frequency matches the heart frequency. We all have had those experiences in one way, shape, or form. And we some of us get addicted to being in that state because you see how optimal you function in. Yeah. And for me, I've been able to do it in various different areas of my life, but with the speaking has been a little crazy just because sometimes I'll say things that I don't say, or I'll say something that I didn't know, but the way I came up with the connection in the middle of the speech is almost like state of flow allows access to higher frequency and information. Right. So that kind of stuff kind of bugs me out a little bit because you're like, yo, how did I know?
Where did that come from?
But it's the same way scientists will come up with something.
Right. They'll have those.
And then a week later, halfway around the world, somebody else came up with it too. And it's very simple. They say once it's out there, it's out there. It's in this neural net from around the world, mind you, that was hacked by Marconi, which is how we get cell phone calls. Okay. Right? It's how to send a frequency into the ionosphere, which will travel at almost the speed of light and get to an apparatus on the other end of the phone. We don't believe in telekinesis, but we believe that our cell phones work. What's the difference between this object, this apparatus, and your brain? Your brain is actually 1,000,000 times stronger than this. Our brains don't know what this doesn't know, right? This was invented off of the premise of the brain. It's an extension of who we are. So again, the world tries to teach us that everything is outside of us. Right. And we have to learn how to go within. I think that by marrying some of what we know, I think it's so that we don't get stuck, because then people get depressed and anxious. Like, it's too many of us walking around with mental illness. So depression and anxiety.
Depression and anxiety, they go hand in hand, man. I hear about it all the time. There's depression and anxiety.
40% of American population suffers from. That's almost 1 out of every 2 people got depression.
40%. That's the number, man.
My take on it is it's a misalignment between your spirit and your physical. Right. Your spirit is either crying or trying to push you to But if your mental faculty and what you know isn't matching on how you could fight it against the environment, then the environment's always going to win.
Right.
I also say the same thing with relationships too. A couple will argue and they won't stop in the middle of it and recognize that I'm stressed out because of work, because we got to pay the bills, because of this, because, you know, this is stressing me and this is stressing you. And then you start, you know, especially with the people closest to each other, you start taking it out on each other, right? And then it's ugly and tense and dark. I think recognizing and always reminding each other that, yo, we have to acknowledge that there's a lot going on around us. I had this experience with this. I was having a conversation with this lady, and we were having a dope conversation, and halfway through, we started arguing. It was weird. We were doing real well, and then we started arguing. Like, it got real tense. Like, I was about to leave. And then she was like, how did we get here? And then on the TV in the background, it was what's it called? Reality TV, where they were arguing with each other.
Okay.
Right. So we were having a conversation, but we weren't paying attention to the fact that on TV, people were arguing and fighting in the background, and we picked up the energy and it carried into our conversation.
Interesting.
Right. So we have to be careful with what we're ingesting, what we're taking in from the outside, and always be cognizant of that first before we make it and address anything in regards to relationship with the other. Why I say these things? Because I'm not going to go to a therapist and talk about my depression so that they could diagnose me major depressive, so they could give me a depression medication. That when you add up over the amount of time and years that you would have paid, or your insurance would have paid, could have just paid your rent and you wouldn't have been depressed no more. Because I was depressed because I couldn't pay my rent and I didn't feel like a man who could sustain his family. You didn't talk about that. You talked about my childhood. And this is what we do. This is what they do. And if we don't know, we think, because we go, oh, yeah, my mom beat me when I was little. Yeah, they beat me when I was little. But nah, I think most of the stresses has to do with the fact that it's tough to survive in this fucking world. And it's not supposed to be tough. Maybe against nature, you know what I mean? But not with each other. Why couldn't we make, I would say, people always waiting for heaven after they die. And when I was little, they used to say, calle de oro, no, calle de oro y acera de cristal, or something like that. Like the streets are made out of gold.
Gold, yeah.
Okay, which is funny to me that we're still equating God and worth, right? That's one. Two, that couldn't we do that now? So if I went and I said whatever they describe in the Bible as heaven, couldn't I create that right now?
I've heard someone said heaven and hell state of mind.
But I mean, physically, couldn't I make a street of gold?
Right.
And if my city has streets of gold, am I, all right, welcome to heaven, y'all.
Right.
Oh, pearly gates, all right, I'll go get some pearls and put them on a gate.
Right.
Is that heaven? Right. And then people say, oh, what happens when you get to heaven? Oh, you're in God's presence. And then I go, okay, how about now? What do you want to do? You're in God's presence? Yeah, for eternity. Okay. How about now? Right? None of the education that we're getting is putting us in this state of understanding our minds.
I know. It's not putting it in
really
anything in the proper context.
But it's I think it's refreshing that this new generation, the millennials, they're really taking this on. I think a little too hard, but it's also, you could expect in the pendulum swing.
Sure. It's been too hard in the opposite direction for too long. So, but what do you mean? So how do you see this generation taking it on?
I think with the ability to define things that, like, we're hearing stuff now like, man, there's so many new terms that we're using in regards to identification. Mind you, when I was young, especially, say, LGBT community, how we used to talk, oh, that shit is gay, and and it was just so much more permissive. And then that wasn't that long ago. That was the 90s. Now fast forward, it's like, you can't say that. My kids would be like, you can't say that. A lot of people around you are more and more vocal that I've witnessed. I know a lot of people are. And then I also run into scenarios where people still hold on to the old idea. But this new generation pushes back, and sometimes I think they hold on, or they try to embody or give too much strength to certain identity concepts. And I'm going to say specifically race. Because I know for me in my study, and if you want to learn more, you could just watch the TED Talk. It's like I'm saying, you can't fight fire with fire. right? Racism is the field of race. It was called scientific racism. It was invented by men. I know their names: Johann Blumenbach, Christoph Meiners. There's a couple of other those guys that came up with these theories in 1776 and wrote them on paper. And people here in the United States, like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, were reading these findings and saying, oh, wow, there is a difference between racial groups, and held on from the foundation of this country all the way up into the year 2000, believing scientifically that people were superior to each other in regards to the color of their skin and behavior, intelligence, procreation, and all this other stuff. So fast forward to today, it was disproven through the breakdown of the human genome and understanding human genetics. If you look in Webster's dictionary now, race, in parentheses right next to it, it says no longer in technical use. So why are they still asking us in applications?
Race,
why are we
census
still
forms and everything
around Black Student Union and Latino? Why are we still doing that? Now, the reason we don't know is because those terms were invented to create what's called color of law, or put you outside of the real law, because only an insane person would identify themselves by something that they're not. And when you look at the Black slave codes, it said that Moors will no longer be called Moors. They will now be called Negroes, Blacks, or mulattoes. Why? Because it's literally a color. Only an insane person walks around calling themselves by their skin color. Out of all the things that you could call yourself by, from 0 to infinity, that you could address yourself as, you talking about your skin color, right? And there's so many problems with that. There's so many problems with that and any other ideology behind that. I don't care who you are, what you want to say. At the end of the day, shit don't work. It means nothing. And for us to organize in it is why it doesn't work. Because all I got to do real quick is to say, oh, you organize as a quote-unquote Black or Latino organization. And all I do is ask them really simply, what does that mean? What does Black mean? Oh, that you got black skin? He ain't got black skin. He light skin as hell. Oh, why are you here? Oh, I'm half Black, but I look more white. Oh, so you can't be in the room then. Right? So who gets to say who gets to be in the room and don't be in the room? Oh, for Black in the U.S., you think Black because it's Black U.S., and then an African person comes and you're like, you not, wait, are you Black? You know, so then we start getting into these conversations. Dominicans and Blacks ain't Dominican. I'm Dominican, but they Black in the skin, but they not Black. So it becomes exclusive, it's limited, and it's redundant, and it doesn't work. It's never worked. Even till today, if the organizations that were based around racial structures were successful, and there's some very old ones, they would have done a whole lot more, especially with the amount of money that they got behind them, right? To me, there are people that look like us that want it to look the way that it looks. The enemy don't look like anything but money, right? And the thing is not to antagonize our relationship towards money, because we can create our own economic structures. It's been done 1,000 times. Look at Bitcoin. Regardless if it worked or didn't work, people got rich off that shit, making up their own economic structures. And because we don't look into these things, we're not taught it. We don't teach each other. You know, a lot of people in our community make it out, never come back. You know, can't walk in the same neighborhood no more. Like, you know, look down now on the people that they left behind. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You know, so that's what we try to do, in plugging in the holes systemically, educationally, you know, where we're not getting in. We'll go in, man, I speak in juvenile halls, I speak in prisons, I speak in rich boarding schools. And, man, I've spoken to so many different audiences, and I've gotten a good spectrum expression.
Across the board, Espérate un momentito. When you go into a juvenile hall or a prison, you already know what it is that you're going to be talking to this group of people about?
Yeah, so I've done really good at being able to like scale up and down what I've written. So if I'm know that I'm going to do a standalone session, and I know how to make it introductory enough to get you thinking to want to know more, versus if I know I'm going to be there for a longer period of time. I mean, the program has 35 sessions, so it lasts 4 months, all in all. Like in the jail, I run it 3 times in a row for the year, because it's transitory. At the jails, they come in and out a lot.
Right.
Before, that's the average time they spend in there for 4 to 6 months.
Right.
So I'm able to work with them, and then I do a life planning with them when I know they're about to leave. And I help come up and draft their life plan and get them all the information and all the contacts. And then if they need me, they know they could just call me when they get out, and I'll help them, figure it out,
So then what's some of the topic of presentation, or like the workshops that you go in there with, like on a day one? Like, let's say, for instance, like a juvenile center, teens or younger,
I made it very simple. It's 5 questions. What, who, when, where, why? What are you? That's what I start just like that. What are you?
But the whole thing is designed to have these young men and men reflect on themselves.
Absolutely. Now,
Right.
so I had a kid, right? He goes, my first time with him, I took him out to eat, right? We chilling. So I said, we are an alternative to incarceration, right? So this is their first time catching a serious charge, and the judge feels okay letting them out in the community. They have to be in our sessions. So I said, look, this is simple, man. You got me. I'm cool. As you can see, I'm not here to, I ain't no herb. I ain't trying to come mess with you or nothing. I got your back with whatever you need. I'll take you out. We'll eat, whatever. But every time I see you, I got a question you got to answer. You ready? He said, yeah. I said, what are you? And he was, first thing people say when they don't know. And this is the ability to affirm yourself, right? It's a trick question, almost in a sense. How do you affirm yourself? I don't know. How do you want me to answer? I don't want you to answer how I want to. I want you to tell me, what are you? I'm a young man. What does that mean? What is a man? Oh, wait, does a man have to have a penis? Nah. Because some men ain't men? Yeah. So then what's a man? And are you it? Oh, damn, you fucking with my head, people. I'm like, I know, all right, let's just keep going. What else? And I go, I'm an African American. What does that mean? African. I don't know. So why you calling yourself that? Bro, out of all the things in the world, how many times are you going to affirm yourself to the world that this is what you are and you don't know what the word means? Why would you call yourself that word? You don't know what it means, right? And it's funny because then he went home and he started talking to his wifey, like his girl, and he was like, yo, babe, she messing my head up. Yo, like, you have to hear the stuff he was saying. Like, and all I'm doing is asking questions.
Sure.
I want them to come up with the answers because there is no answer to that. That's how you want to answer. I also do it in interviews. I have interns. I had a group where, we were going to be selective this time around because we had a negative experience. So they sat down and they're nervous and, they sit across the desk and then we're having a little panel and we're like, okay, what are you? Right. And I'm just going to give you a heads up. This is not going to be a regular interview that you've been in.
Yeah.
We want to see the real you. So what are you? How do you want me to answer? Nope. Already, nope.
So from that interview process, right? From that kind of response, how do you want me to answer? You already know in your mind that it's not necessarily going to work out. Well, do you keep going, like, keep probing to like see a little deeper, knowing that there's going to be a sense of nervousness?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got you.
It depends how long you hold on, because some people just won't, right? And
I got you.
I can't send you out into the world affirming that you work for this company, because you can't affirm yourself, and it's going to read in your body language and in the way that you talk, and now you're going to misrepresent us. So out of that group, one of them, as soon as I go like this, what are you? A queen. You're high. I didn't have to answer. I didn't have to ask her any more questions. I didn't have, because she knew how to affirm, and she believed it.
Right.
You know what I mean, so that's important. What? Who am I? When am I? Where am I? And why am I? Once you have your why, there's nothing that can stop you. By depression, by anxiety, by mental health, by negative relationships, by everything, because you know why you're here.
Yeah.
That is so important to know, because it's the direction and the orientation of your life.
So then, like, so what do you say, what do you say to brothers? Let's put it in context of the frat that may be watching, younger brothers, neos, you know what I mean? Or fuck it, alumni, whatever the case may be, that these brothers are working, they're employed, they're doing all right, but it's not their purpose. It's not their calling. You know what I mean? Like, what do you say to them then? Like, if you say that, your why is what it's about, which I agree with. What do you say to people who can't figure it out? I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But it ain't what I'm doing.
Yeah. So because we equate our ability to do what we want to do to livelihood. Those are two different things. The point is that you get educated enough to know how to marry the two together. And that is work. And it's not just going to happen. I don't care where you know what's example how this works? I'm the best employee in my business. The best employee in everyone loves me. My bosses love me. Come time to move up. You think they're going to move me up? If they move me up, they lose their best employee. So they're going to keep me there. And people do this shit all the time.
Yep.
So being too good at your job doesn't work. When I got my master's degree, I got turned down by 10 different jobs because I was quote unquote overqualified.
Okay.
Right. I went from being underqualified to overqualified. I didn't even get a qualified in between.
Right.
Is that when you listen to the business world, people need to learn that it's like listening to law. And you know what? When you talk to inmates, they know the law, y'all. They'll sit there and be like, because they've been through it.
Right.
So if you're able to explain to me and you don't have a formal education, you a street hustler, you sell drugs for a living, but you're able to break down the law, why can't anybody else do the same thing?
Sure.
Right? So I think our fear of wanting to explore into areas that maybe aren't particular to us, that's one. Two, managing your time. Like people tell me all the time, I'm too busy. I'm like, you can't tell me you're too busy. I got 5 kids, 14 running programs, a staff of 15, and I'm a professor, and I got students, and I got interns. How the fuck do I do it? You know what I mean? Like, because I've learned to manage my time. Trick number 1, wake up early. 5:30, 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. You can get a lot done before the business day starts, right? How do I wake up early and maximize my energy? Exercising, yoga, eating right, and positive thinking. You know, keep your energy going. If I ever feel my energy go low, I got songs on deck. I play that song, I sing along, and my energy go right back up because it reminds me of where it is that I'm going. I keep this daily, you know, as healthy as I can practice.
Sure.
Sometimes you got to step a gas on. You got to bust your ass. That's how it works. You know what I mean? As long as you know you're going to get that end goal, go for it. And I'll do it till I fall dead asleep when I'm done. But then I look back and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad I did that. I busted out and I invested energy into it because everything adds together. Do one thing, then you take a step. That's what success means. Success of taking a step after the next step.
Sure.
If you're a musician, don't just do one track. Do 100. Even if 50 are whack, fuck it. You're not doing it for nobody. You're doing this for you. It's your music. You're the musician. Same thing with any other field. If you're going into it to impress the world, again, you're going into the external. Your art will never be an art because everyone else has a say. Now it's not your art no more. It's everybody else's art, right? Put your own effort, your own work into it, and then tell the world, regardless of what you think how they're gonna react and respond, because you didn't do it for them.
Right.
You did it for yourself. And sometimes we have intention as to why we create, and that's fine. Sometimes people don't receive what we create. That's fine too. They're not supposed to. You know what I mean? So when we learn those things, it gets easier to move, right? We learn to take rejection better, right? We learn to take when someone says no, we know how to keep it moving. We don't fall. We don't give up on our dream. We know to just every day keep at it. And I would just say, if you work full time, at least, mind you, I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked with thousands of people. Most people say, I wish I would have,
Regret.
Right? There's this like shoulda, coulda, woulda thing going on. And then they go, you know, if I would have done that, then maybe not. Then I go, so how come you can't do it now? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, are you not too old? No, you're not too old. I saw somebody graduate from college the other day, was 91 on the news. So my therapist is blind. Like, he got a master's degree and a license, and he's blind. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear nothing. Anybody could do it, whatever they need to do. Is put at least half an hour every day. Half an hour every day.
Into yourself? Into
yourself. Mind you, I figured it out like this. If you put in 40 hours a week into another entity, they benefit from your battery, your cog, right? Now imagine putting 40 hours a week into you. right? Now, anything that I create within those 40 hours, which should be a lot, that's a lot of time.
Yep.
Right? Now, remains with me. You understand? If I made a form, if I made a contract, if I'm end up working for a business and this person says, do me a favor, write this proposal for me real quick. So you work for them. Okay, I wrote the proposal. They submitted. They got the money.
Sure.
Wrote the proposal.
Sure.
You could have wrote that proposal, submitted it for yourself, and made the money if you had what you needed behind it.
I like what you said, that any time invested in you stays with you.
Exactly.
The workout that you do, the push-ups, stays with you.
Exactly.
The meditation stays with you. I like the way you put that.
Exactly. And then if you keep practicing, then it's always there, right? And it don't mean, when you work out, you don't have to work out every day. Work out 3 times a week. Just keep it a consistent in between so that you maintain the energetic level that you need. If you manage your energy, you manage your time, and you're holding them very precious and dear, then everything else starts to fall off. Somebody can get you like, yo, did you hear this nigga? Nah. And you are in your own head.
You in your own headspace,
what you need to be doing. And you're like, yo, bro, I don't got time for that shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what you mean? Bro, I really don't got time for that. I got something to do right now.
Yeah.
So, literally, drama starts to fall off from you because you hold these things so dear to you. Somebody comes to you with drama, you're like, that's it. I'm done. I don't argue. I don't get into unnecessary discussions. I don't like small talk. We're gonna build. You're not gonna come here and talk about the Jets. Like, bro, I really don't care. But that's not contributing to nothing. These motherfuckers getting paid, we not. So I don't want to spend the next hour talking about football. Let's talk about something that's gonna build our people where we need to go.
That's right. That's right.
And I've learned more now for those of us that are leaders, being okay with being looked at like you're crazy, being okay with being looked at like you're not right or you're not especially for young people, because it's easy to chuck off a young person's ideas at the fact that they're young and they don't know, and that's not true. There's a lot of young people that have a lot to contribute. And we should just be able to own who we are and move in that way without letting the rest of the world intervene with that. And I think from there, whatever you say your mind to, there's nothing that should stop you besides nature. And if it's nature, that's a whole nother conversation. I mean, spirit and God got to have a talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's going to happen no matter what you're doing and how well you're doing. Sometimes God says we need to have a talk. Right? And you got to stop and listen. And take it and keep it moving, right? And learn how to keep swimming. That's pretty much it, one step at a time. But my life experience has been that up until now. I'm still young, I know I still got a whole lot more to go, and I always kind of remind myself that what would I be 20 years from now? When 20 years from now, I'll be 57. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking back at 57. How much would I have accomplished from here to then?
Right.
Like, how much more is my word going to be worth as an elder now? With white hairs and a viejolo. Like, now my word's different. Now people are going to listen a little different because they recognize that in me. So we're going to evolve, right? So I want to live into this vision, and where am I going to be so that I can start living into it and as much as I can now.
Let me ask you this. One of the last questions I asked you before we wrap it up, coming up on a 2-hour mark. How much time, in your view, should one spend thinking about, in 20 years, where should I be, versus, AKA, putting their mind in a state of existing in the future, versus doing what they got to do and keeping your mind in the now? Because some people will say that the future doesn't exist. So why even waste valuable now energy or now potential thinking about something that is not guaranteed and really just doesn't exist?
It, to me, is more, this is how I would define it. It's you're making a declaration. If you build it, they will come. Like, I was telling somebody yesterday, how much do you want to make? Like, and most people can't answer that. Like, a lot of, in our community, a lot of people don't know and even equate what is $20 an hour. How does that add up to how much per year, right? First off, be clear. How much do I need to make in order to do the things that I need to do? And declare it, right? January 1st, the year started. I declare this year I'm going to make $200,000. That's what I declare, right? And that sets a tone. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to invest energy. And so I know that every step that I'm taking, Not just how much I'm making, where do I want to live, how do I want my family to be, how am I going to resolve something, and you make a declaration. That's the way life works. Once you made the declaration, everything else that you're working and everything else that you're attracting, right? Because you have subconscious, your subconscious works, our conscious thought works in attracting, but so does the subconscious.
Sure.
Right? I could be conscious all day and I ain't resolved what I got in my unconscious, and I'm over here attracting shit and I don't know why. Right? Same thing on this point. When I need to make that base foundational declaration so that the conscious mind is oriented to where it needs to go. Okay. Right? So it doesn't mean that you're living in the future. It just means that you have a goal.
Okay.
Right? My goal is to wake up tomorrow at 7 a.m. I know I don't have the future, but I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m.
Got you.
Right? And get to where I need to go. So it doesn't mean living. That's what anxiety means, living in the future. Depression means living in the past.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Bro, any last words that you would like to drop on the people, generally, broadly, brothers that may be watching, prospective members that may be watching? You know, they might show this at an interest meeting. You might be talking to some college freshmen or the viewership in general. Some of my middle school students might be watching this. Anybody, man. Any broad things that you can give the viewership?
I would say, please try to be more easy and compassionate with yourself. I mean, but deep. Like, try to go as deep as you can with being compassionate with yourself, with being okay with yourself, being okay in your own skin. Like, it's not a science, it's a feeling, you know, and it's a feeling that you generate through a lot of different things, which is, I know it's easier said than done, especially people who suffer from mental health. But I think foundationally is a constant conscious decision to, I would say that just as important as taking a deep breath. Take a deep breath and be okay with yourself. And that's really helped me out a lot. Like when I get sad as a man, I'm all like, right, you know, you're watching that movie and that sad part come out, you try to hold it in as strong as you can so nobody can see you cry, right? Why though? Why? For real, why? Why we do it? Stupid. And when I do it, I start laughing really loud because how stupid I feel that just because this is sad, I don't want to cry. I don't cry because people are watching me. So I've learned to train to bottle myself in, you know, and I think this is why it is. Like, then when I started learning, when I get sad, I go, it's okay to be sad. And then I'll just be sad. And it lasts 5 minutes now instead of lasting 10 days because I was able to confront it right away. The next thing I would say is, you know, the babies, guys, like there's a lot of unlearning and decolonizing that we have to do. And we have to be very careful that we're not colonizing them because that's what was done to us. And we could be as woke as we want, but there's certain things that we haven't mastered, i.e. specifically emotional intelligence. And I'll say it from personal experience. With my eldest kids, when I first started disciplining and my son would start crying, I'd be like, nah, I don't want to see the crying. Who's doing it now? Me. I'm chastising you. Your natural response should be to cry because you feel bad, but now I'm telling you can't do it. So we have to assess very carefully what we're filtering down to the next generation. And third, we need unity. We need unity, and that's why it's important, the message of self-knowledge and getting yourself right. First is important because you can't come to the table if you're not working.
Nothing.
You know what I mean? So, and if we know we all need unity, then we put the effort into maximizing ourselves, and hopefully those of us that are leaders can really live into their leadership position to the point of creating this communal approach. And it is happening. I've seen it everywhere. It happens in our own communities. We just need more. We need more because the more we build and the more those things start coming together, the more voice and the more strength we'll have in a lot of areas of our society. But right now we are very lacking, and it's not on anybody but us.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of other external factors affecting it, but I think with that overall mission in mind, at least a small group of people come together to make a strong impact. I'm not expecting that everybody does, but I'm just gonna say, if you want to live the life that you want to pass on, you want your lineage and your legacy, legally speaking, your estate, to be of something. The model that's being proposed to us does not take you there at all. 9 to 5 does not take you there. I don't care who you are. So the fact that they've taught us that and they brainwashed us into that is why a lot of us are struggling economically. We are way more intelligent and capable than a lot of us give ourselves credit. And what stops us is fear. What stops us is a lack of confidence. What stops us is not knowing. But you can't have that as an excuse in the age of information.
Right.
Now you have the ability to know. Now it's just emotion. Pure emotion on your end. Emotion and energy will get you there because you have what you need in order to move forward. And I think with that, it'll manifest the way it needs to, man. Anything else we don't have control over. Again, that's giving. I'm just giving, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and practicing as much as I can and learn how to receive. And that I know comes in every other way, which is why my family's blessed. And I know we'll continue to stay blessed as long as I can do it and make sure that my family, my kids know how to live that life that way. So.
Yes, sir. Emotion and energy will get you there. Brother, this was legendary. I appreciate you blessing the mic, blessing my show. And his name is Dennis Febo, man. Reach out. He's doing the work. I appreciate you, my bro. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Love y'all, man. Be safe out there.
Us.
Peace.